Welcome back to the Digital Pen Pals podcast. This is episode 6, right, Zach?
Yes, episode 6. Can you believe it?
I seriously cannot believe this. I went to create the folders for this today, and I was like, okay, do an episode 4 or 5, and then I'm like, wait, we already recorded those. So it's pretty surreal that we've done 6 of these things. These
Yeah,
things.
if you think about that, like quantifiably, that's 6 weeks of doing something each week. That's actually really good. That's
Yeah.
the most I think I've ever gone with anything making stuff online, really.
Yeah, pretty consistent. I think I used to do a podcast with my buddy Jackson, and we got I think 9 weeks in, but we missed a few weeks between there. So I don't want that to happen to this, because this podcast has a purpose, and that one was kind of just for fun. But yes, welcome. We are the Digital Pen Pals. I'm Lincoln, and I got my my friend Zach here. We do this thing together, and we have a good time, and we talk about art. So today, in the spirit of the new year still, and just recent events in me and Zach's life, we're going to be talking about new mediums, stretching yourself, and 3D printing. So Zach, what did we get in these last few weeks?
I did sort of a good, great, horrible, terrible thing, and because of certain events.
I pushed you to do this.
Well, not really. Like, I pushed myself, but I gave myself the excuse to go ahead and do it. So, you had recently got something for Christmas.
Yes, I got the Ender 3 Pro. It's a 3D printer for Christmas, and I was having a great time with it.
And it had re-sparked the imagination and excitement that I had for 3D printing years ago, because when it first kind of came out and started becoming more of hey, you could actually get one for your house, I was like, that's sick, I want one. Then I looked at the price tag and I was like, oof, I don't know if I want to spend that much money on something that I just don't know much about. And so I've been watching videos on and off on YouTube, and then I eventually got one because I was like, hey, you really like yours, and I was watching your TikToks of making things, and I was like, man, I really want to freaking do that. That's awesome. And now I actually know somebody who has one and can recommend a printer, basically, because I've seen the stuff that comes off the printer. I felt more comfortable purchasing one. And so, yeah, I finally got the same exact printer that Lincoln has, and I love it. It's so fun. It does have its challenges, but it's such a fun little hobby to get into, and it makes me feel it gives me such fascination. I don't know. I've only had it a week, and I've printed so many things with it, and I've even printed things that actually go onto the printer to improve the printer itself, which is kind of insane.
Yeah, if you want to see the stuff that me and Zach have made, go check out our TikToks, because we've been kind of spamming them with 3D printing stuff.
Oh yeah, I feel bad for our followers, but
yeah, I'm like, yes, I'm an account that does cute drawings and pins and stickers, and then it's just kidding. Here's 7 million 3D printing videos.
Yep.
But one person had described 3D printing to me in a very interesting and accurate way. He said it's a marriage of the left and right side of your brain, because you have to be creative, and then you have to do things logistically and logically to get everything set up right and make sure all the machinery is working right, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think part of being creative is this is what I've learned a lot in school, is repeated and pounded in our heads, especially my last couple semesters of college. I took an art business class and stuff like that, and the teachers would always be because they're not babying us anymore, because we're getting closer to graduation, and those were the required classes for the seniors or the juniors basically of college, and they're when people hire you, they hire you to be someone who solves problems. You're not an artist, you're a problem solver. Yes, there's being creative, but you are literally a problem solver. You're trying to find a visual way to represent what the client wants, or in this case, if it's just personal art, what you want. You're trying to solve that problem all the time, and if something doesn't work, you have to kind of find your way around it. And I think for me, I found that too when I was growing up, and I started, for example, doing videos and just making silly videos on my old YouTube channel when I was just starting out in high school, and a little bit throughout high school I made these just cheesy videos, but it was a lot of trial and error. I'm I don't know how to operate a camera, so I just hit record, And then I'm like, okay, editing. How do I do editing? And at the time, we just had like Windows Vista and using like Microsoft or what was it called, Movie Maker, Windows Movie Maker, and like there was things that I wanted to do, but I was limited because it's Windows Movie Maker. We're not talking high production value here. We're talking basic default Windows program from like 2007 or something.
You can get a free movie editor on your phone that'll do better these days.
Oh yeah, nowadays like it's so good. You just type in like video editor on Windows and like holy cow, that program's awesome.
What's the one that you use that's free, that's really good?
It's that one. Like if you just need to do like clean basic edits on like any your cell phone videos or just videos in general, I would recommend just doing video editor on Windows. Just type it in your search bar on Windows and it'll pop up.
Windows?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's built in, which is really nice. I just discovered it and I was like, oh, because they got rid of Movie Maker like a long time ago, and I was sort of sad about that because I was like, oh, nostalgia. But yeah, no, this program's really much more user friendly, and like I was limited by a lot of things, but that's where like problem solving came into play. Like was that I had to kind of look up like on the old YouTube, I'd have to look up tutorials on like, oh, how to do this thing or how to install like this little filter or something to get this thing. I was never able to do the like sort of specialer effects that I wanted to do just for fun, but definitely a lot of problem solving, and even though it was a limited tool, I was able to kind of stretch it as far as I could than most people might think of using it, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, like as a creative person, you're a problem solver and you're a lot of things, and art is just problem solving, which kind of stinks, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun with the 3D printer, and it's been very difficult for me because, it's a new thing, and as an artist, like learning how to stretch yourself like that is extremely important. I've found like because I would always limit myself and say, oh, I'm not going to draw hands, I'm not going to draw faces because I'm bad at them. But the moment I say like, no, that's stupid, I need to do this, and I stretch myself, that's when I get better at them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hard because, like, anybody just wants to be lazy. Anybody just wants to, like, not do anything or just be passive and, like, turn on TV or turn on YouTube or something and just, like, just zone out, right? But, I don't know. I think as an artist, you start to get into the point where you love solving problems. Like, it's exciting. Because I feel like the more it's just like anything. Like I don't know, it's so weird because everything's so similar to itself. But like, the more artwork you do, the better you're gonna get, right? The easier it becomes. The more times you solve problems, the easier it becomes. And so, I think for me, it's been like really like fulfilling to feel like you solve problems like in your own creative process, like learning how to use like software for drawing or digital painting or video, like the example I showed. But I don't know. I find myself more and more like looking at resources like YouTube and stuff like that as ways for me to sit down and be like, hey, I don't even have these problems, but oh, this is a cool video about editing, or this is a cool video about drawing, and it like talks about a problem that you might face, and I'm like, I've never faced that problem, but it's just good information to know. So, and I think TikTok as well, like there's lots of little things that are like, hey, here's a tip, and I'm like, interesting, I've never encountered that problem, but that's a really good way to solve that problem. And I think as an artist, you start to learn to love to overcome those problems and stuff. But yeah, for me, like the 3D printer was kind of I had learned as much as I could online through YouTube and stuff, and especially looking at the specific videos for the 3D printer. And I guess I wasn't as scared to construct it, because before I remember when I first started thinking about getting a 3D printer years ago, I was like, oh no, I don't know how to build that, and I'm scared to build that because the instructions usually are not good.
I was terrified of constructing mine.
Yeah.
I was so afraid I was going to mess up.
Yeah, like I was like, one bolt might be loose and the whole thing just goes to shreds. I don't know. But this kind of goes along too. Like I had spent so much time learning about how to build a PC, because I'd become fascinated with it, because it just become like, it's like more like the pricing's better, because long term it was a better bang for your buck kind of thing. And so I decided to go that route instead of trying to get another gaming laptop that just did not handle softwares very well as it should have. And so, just like, a 3D printer, the building a PC like taught me so much, and it got me more comfortable with like, hey, these are expensive, scary parts to potentially break. But
They're actually really
yeah, I was
sturdy,
like more
found.
prepared to handle that because of the problem solving that I'd done beforehand with like the PC. And so like, I don't know, it's been really fun, and things have come up, but luckily I've had you and especially another friend he's like modded out his Ender 3D printer like a crap ton, and he every time I usually run into an issue, I message him about it, and he typically knows the answer. And if he doesn't, he kind of helps me walk through, be like, well, could it be this? And I was like, no. And then eventually we like figure it out. But like now I've kind of got things settled where like I know how to do like a level the printing surface, and how to just do a little quick test print to make sure it's all calibrated. So like the pressure is good for like printing. I don't know. But
I
it's been
was
good.
I unfortunately didn't have a close friend that could help me. So if you look at a
I'll
lot
have to
of
swap contacts with you with him because he knows a lot.
so I haven't figured out now. But my first like a majority of my first prints are missing like the first few layers because the bed wasn't level, so it was basically
Ooh.
the printer nozzle. I'll try to explain this in the most simple terms ever. The printer nozzle or
Mm-hmm.
extruder was like pressed up against the printing bed, and so it wasn't able to push out the 3D plastic material, and it was
That's
making
not
like this
good.
clicking sound, and I'm like, that's normal, right?
Right.
Here's a fun fact: it wasn't normal. So so yeah, I've had a lot of struggles learning 3D printing alone. I have an interesting question for you, Zach. Though, what is
Yeah.
the favorite out of all the things you've printed? What is your favorite thing that you've made so far with your 3D
Oh
printer? Pick
Oh
one.
man. I've printed both like just fun toy things, and I've also printed like more practical things for myself. Man, I have to pick like two. Okay, one practical is I think it's awesome. Oh man, it's hard to choose. Dang it. I really like my Switch grips. So I've always wanted to get grips for the Nintendo Switch, just in like handheld mode, because it's obviously not ergonomical at all. It's not even comfortable. It hurts your hands after a while. And so I printed those, which I really like. Those are more practical. And then as far as like aesthetics, I I really like I printed off a chest from Breath of the Wild, like the Bogoblin chest thing that you usually can find
I
that has
saw
treasure
that.
in it after you
It turned out
defeat
really well.
a horde of them or whatever. But
Yeah,
yeah, those would be like my two favorite, I think, so far.
I think my favorite out of all the things you've made is the Bokoblin chest, especially because you went and took some really sick pictures of it, and like
Oh
you
yeah.
did like some really cool cinematic shots of it, and then you had like all the stuff for photo, like the little photo area that you had set up for it, and you put like little
Hmm.
rocks, or what was that inside there?
Oh, so they're just like literally from Michaels, you can find them like where they have like the fake seashells and sand and stuff. There's like these glass bits, and I just fill it up with like glass bits and stuff.
Huh.
And yeah, like that just comes from like I watched like an artist on YouTube called Daniel Schaefer. Thank goodness I remembered his name. It'd be awkward if I didn't. But yeah, go check that out if you're interested in like video slash photo photography, like just in your own house. Like he does a lot of product videos and stuff, and it's really interesting, like the little things he talks about, because like it made me realize like you really don't need much. You can just like set up a basic, like I literally just used the background was the foam from the printer itself that it came in.
Oh,
It's just like the black foam, and then I just set it up on like something random, and then I just had like a house plant, and I just threw it in the back, and it was just the way you light it up, and
it
I
turned
used
out
like
real
a
nice.
colored light as well, and like that was it. Like it was super simple, but like on camera it looks like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, it turned out
But it's
fantastic.
yeah, I freaking love it. I'm excited for stuff like that, because like 3D printing opens up a whole new world for us. Like I know you probably think of the same things that I am. Like, oh man, I want to like for me specifically, I'm like I want to, because I've taken a 3D modeling class in college. Like I was like I want to get back into digital sculpting, and I want to model my 2D characters into 3D and then print them as like little mini figurines or keychains or whatever it might be. And it just, there's so many different possibilities, especially pairing that with like taking photos of it, which I think is super fun to take photos of like products. Especially like those, 3D prints are fun, but it's just a whole new world, and it's really exciting to get into.
Yeah, I'm so excited to keep making stuff and seeing what we both come up with. You've made a lot of like useful things and things that are like really practical, and I have been dedicated to making asinine and pointless little fidgets and figurines and Legend of Zelda models. I
Hey, those are cool though. I kind of lived vicariously through you though. Before I got my printer, I'd seen you print that stuff. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I want to print. Like, of course, I printed like a toy thing first. Like, just like, oh, I want a flexible like Velociraptor toy. That's so cool. But then immediately I was like, okay, I've been saving so many things on Thingiverse for years, and I'm like, I have so many practical things I really just want.
Yeah, I think the only practical thing I printed is it's like a holder for the Allen wrenches that the printer came with, and
Oh, that's good.
it attaches on the backside. And you printed like a little cover for the screen on the printer, and I want to make that as well. But
Yeah, that one's good. It kind
currently,
of like it's a little bit tight on the screen, like the outer edge of the screen thing.
mhm,
I don't know. It fits, but it just feels like maybe it could have been like a little. I don't know. Maybe it was just my printer. It might print differently for you, but it works still. But
currently I'm
um,
working on something super awesome. You know what it is? I'm
oh
making
yeah, I do.
a helmet from the Mandalorian. um, and it's taken a very long time. So, fun fact about this podcast was we're recording it very late at night because I started a print, and that print took, I think it was 1 day and 13 hours. And so it
Dang.
was like recording day for the podcast, and I was like, cool, let's record. And then I like looked and my printer was on, and I was like, oh, I can't record with this in the background because if it was
Yeah.
on, it would sound like there's a microwave in the background, or some people say it sounds like sirens. So if you tune into my Twitch stream and you want to hear a microwave, just listen really hard when I turn the music off, and you will hear a microwave or sirens or however you want to describe it. But
Yeah, and yeah, that's what I've had to been careful about too, because I've been printing almost nonstop, and so I finally like taken a break because I was like, okay, we're gonna record the podcast. Got to make sure whatever print I'm doing today has to end by a certain time, and so I printed something that lasted like 7 hours to print, which is kind of surprising. Like I knew they took a long time to print, but like once you start like picking up 3D models off of like Thingiverse, and you get into your there's a software that basically converts it so the printer knows how to print it. Because you just have the 3D model when you download it, but then the program, which is called like a slicer program, basically slices it into layers and tells the path for the printer to go to print everything. And yeah, as soon as you start getting into that and you start like importing a bunch of 3D models, and then you say slice, and it starts slicing, and then it gives you like the estimated time. And you're like, oh, that's 20 hours.
yeah, it's like, oh, this is gonna take a
Maybe I
long
won't
time.
print that one. Maybe I'll print that one later.
See that, and that's the reason I hadn't built the helmet before, was because I was like, okay, I want to make all this stupid stuff before I dedicate myself to like 2 weeks of just straight printing, pretty much.
Oh yeah.
I think my next piece is supposed to take 20 hours because I'm printing the armor in 14 separate pieces. But aside from the armor, I think my favorite piece that I've printed personally so far is I think I showed it to you, but I call it the Tux Diamond.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
It's like I just found like a model of like a giant crystal that just like fits in the palm of both my hands. But I ran out of blue filament while I was doing it, so I had to
Oh no.
swap the filament at the very end to
That's
my black
cool.
filament. So it ended up giving it a black spot, and so it looks really unique, and it's just kind of cool. And my community has kind of taken it on as like a sacred object. They call it the Tux, the corrupted Tux Diamond, because it has like the dark spot on it.
That's fun.
But
Yeah, I've seen a lot of cool stuff where people like will switch out filaments at certain points. Like say you're printing like something that's flat and it just has words on it. Like they'll print the base of whatever plaque thing it is,
they'll
and then they'll
swap it out
swap
at
out
the
the
end.
filament before they get to the words or something. Or there's some printers that can do like more than one color at a time, so it can swap between them during the print, which is really nice. But yeah, the ones we have are just like single filament, which is like, if it, like it's just plastic. For those who don't know, it's just like, you know, a spool of plastic in a spool.
Yeah, it's it's really fun. Yeah, I think I saw there's like dual extruder printers, which basically means like the two color printers. But what you can
Mm-hmm.
do is you can get water. I think the word's water soluble filament, or like water like filament that will dissolve in the water. So you can basically have it,
Oh
all the
yeah.
supports are printed with that material, whereas
Mm-hmm.
the rest of it will be printed just normally. So then when the print's done, you could just throw it in water and all of the supports will just dissolve.
It's amazing.
And it's like, wow, that's super
Um,
cool. You can make super intricate designs like that.
yeah, and also like supports too. Like if you're new to 3D printing, hopefully this is kind of interesting to some people, but um, when you 3D print something, you have to print on a surface. Like it has to build upon some sort of foundation, right? Like if you start sculpting, you put the clay on the table, right? And then you start sculpting up. But you're not going to start sculpting and be like, I'm going to add the nose, and then you start sculpting it like an inch above where the clay is, and then you sculpt it and you let go and it just drops. Like there's no support, because there's the clay's on the table still. It's not, you haven't built it up to be that high as the nose yet, right? And so with like 3D printing, you have to have these supports, which are just extra, like they're weaker printed plastic portions of the model or whatever you're printing, but they kind of rip off or peel off a little bit. Sometimes they're harder to take off than other models, but um, yeah, they create a support. So if there's like an overhang, like something arcs over like 90 degrees or whatever it is, I think it can print up to like 45-degree angle or something, but it just creates a support so that way it has something to print on once it gets to that point where it's curving so much, because otherwise it would just tip over and it would just like, it would start printing the material, but it would just string and it would just like fall to the ground. It would not be good.
Yeah, 3D printing is very cool, and it's been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun with it. Have you had a lot of fun with it, Zach?
Yeah, I have. It's been fun. I really liked the experience so far, especially just like, ooh, I can maybe model my own little things that I might need or something, but haven't gotten there yet. It's only been the first week.
Yeah,
But
so our experience with 3D printing, we want to relate to you guys to basically like starting new mediums. A medium is like basically a style of art. So like digital art's a medium, like oil painting's a medium, acrylic is a medium, like 3D modeling's a medium. It's all like doing a new form of art is like a different medium. Sometimes it could be really scary to start a new medium, or sometimes it could be really exciting to start a new medium. But there's a lot of pitfalls that you have to look out for, and then there's a lot of uh, there's just a lot of advice that not a lot of people tell you about when you're getting into a new medium.
right, yeah, I think it's hard to start off with a new medium, like you said, because it's new. It's like you have no idea what you're getting into. You don't know what like materials you might need for it. Like I mean, it could be anything. Like say oil painting or acrylic painting, or I guess it's too many painting examples, but you see what I mean. Like there's, you know, other hobbies too. If you get into like maybe like you want to fly drones or something, you gotta learn about drones, how they're built together. It's just complicated and it could seem very like convoluted. Like I'm pretty sure half the stuff we were talking about with 3D printers just was like, okay guys, that's a little bit nerdy or something, you know. But you know, there's a lot of stuff you have to pick up before you start doing like a hobby. And I think for me, my opinion, like I really like to research things like, you know, the 3D printing. I thoroughly researched that before I bought it. Same goes with like my camera or something that I buy, or my phone. I always research stuff, and if it's a new hobby, you know, I always make sure I understand like how things work before I decide make decisions on like what materials to buy. So that way I'm like, I feel like I have a good basic understanding of, okay, first step, figure out what the heck kind of materials you need. How I'm gonna do it, I don't know, but I can just start off the materials, and you know, there you go. And so bam, step one, materials. I know what materials to have, and then they come through the mail or whatever, or the art store that you go to potentially. And okay, now I have this new medium. Now what? Um, but I think too, like, you know, aside from my experience at school, it's just like I just literally YouTube everything. Like anything you might need to know is probably on YouTube.
It's super easy to learn a new medium if you have somebody else that's already done it. But
Mm-hmm.
even if you are alone, in today's wonderful age of information and technology and wonderful YouTubes and stuff, it's super easy, at least easier, to learn a medium by yourself. Uh, Back to the 3D printing example, like Zach had his friend, Zach had all the research he's done throughout his whole life, and Zach had me who had recently gotten into it. But in my example, it was a Christmas gift, right? So I didn't do any prep for getting this. I literally got it Christmas Day and then sat down and watched a bunch of videos and read a bunch of things and figured out how to do it myself. And I was able to build my printer with no prior knowledge to 3D printing. And so,
Totally epic.
yeah, so like that's the wonderful thing about being an artist like these days is you can literally like if you want to learn how to do oil painting, all you need is a means to get the material and then internet connection and a device. And you can and will learn how to do oil painting. Or will you fail a lot? Oh, you will fail so much, and you will fail a lot more than if you actually had a mentor or somebody that's showing you how to do it that is physically there. But you can still do it alone, and that's super awesome. And I've experienced that through digital art, through like almost everything I've done because I'm mostly self-taught. Like all the stuff that I've learned is from books and from YouTube videos and from picking up a few tips here and there from friends and Twitch streamers. Whereas Zach like actually had like the college education of learning art.
Right. And I would say too, like I mean, I wouldn't say like my whole knowledge is based off of just college stuff because I feel like
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know, like I could have learned so much more at college too. Like there's so many different classes I could have taken, or I could have paid more attention at some of my classes, um, or worked harder. Um, but there's so much that I've learned from YouTube, like even before going to college for art, like just so many little things that I learned from just online stuff, like self-taught, that I mean, I mean, take it from someone who went to school as well, like you can equally learn a lot online. For me, it was more about like I mean, we already did a podcast about this, but my basic premise is like I need some sort of structure and someone telling me what to do because like, I kind of get through spouts of like, oh, I want to try this art form or something and like practice this, and it can get kind of tricky because then I get wishy-washy and I'm like jumping from thing to thing and I'm never really focusing. And so school for me was like, hey, I'm a professor, do what I say, and you're like, okay, focus time, rather than being so wishy-washy like I usually am at home. Like right now I'm into 3D printing, but like who knows, next week maybe I'll be like, I mean, especially since we want to paint models, I'll be like, oh, I want to get back into painting and learn how to paint a 3D object. That's cool. But yeah, I think there's plenty of ways to resource out and gain an education. I just think it depends on the type of person you are. But yeah, new mediums, definitely you can find a lot of that online. I mean, what's something that's like been scary for you to learn, Lincoln, since you are essentially self-taught?
I've always been scared of I've always been scared of Adobe After Effects, and
Oh
that's
gosh.
kind of an irrational fear though.
It's not irrational. Just open up Adobe After Effects and it ensues fear.
The UI is really intimidating, and as coming from somebody who's a Premiere kid, like Adobe Premiere kid, like it just intimidates me. And then Clip Studio Paint is also intimidating to me as a Photoshop user. But I've seen cool
Mhm.
stuff that people have made with Clip Studio Paint, and I'm like, I need to just sit down and figure it out. But yeah, I guess that's one of the things that I get scared of is like doing new mediums because it's like right your whole life like for me at least like I've just doodled in pencil, and so like when I first started getting into digital art, I would get really down on myself because I'd look at my digital stuff compared to like my pencil stuff, and I'd be like, why is my pencil stuff so much better than my digital stuff? Like shouldn't the digital art be better because I have so much more tools, I have so much more control, I have the undo button, I have layers, like I have everything that pencil doesn't have. Like why do my pencil drawings turn out better? But it's because I've been doing pencil stuff my whole life, and like did it was like digital is new to me. And so when you do a new medium, a lot of the skills will translate, especially between like painting and drawing. And so it's like a lot of the basic fundamentals will transfer, but you have to know each medium functions differently, and each different field of art is extremely different in some way, shape, or form. And so you got to almost go into it, and your first few pieces, and for even like the first while that you're making stuff, you don't want to expect the best out of it. You just say, okay, I'm going to get into this new medium. Like for example, like I want to get back into miniature painting, and I used to do it before. So me getting back into it is going to be like, okay, like let's have fun with this. So getting into a new medium, the purpose isn't to be like, okay, I'm really good at this, so now I'm going to be really good at this. So it's like, I'm really good at like drawing in pencil, so now I'm going to get a digital like a digital drawing device, and I'm going to be really good at it. One thing that I've found, like in 3D printing, well, I wouldn't necessarily have had this experience, but I could have seen how I could have had this experience. So I made a video on TikTok about my 3D printer, and a bunch of people were saying like, oh, can I buy your stuff? Can I buy your stuff? And I basically thought like, oh, what if I bought this 3D printer like expecting to make money? Like when you're getting into a new medium, you don't want to do it to make cash. Like if you're getting into a new medium, you got to go into it from the point of view of, look, this medium seems interesting. I'm going to get into it. Every penny I'm spending on this medium is practically going into the trash can. Like, I'm not going to see any of this money back. Like, I'm not doing this for cash. I'm doing this for fun. What are your thoughts on that, Zach?
Yeah, like I totally agree. And kind of going back to, I just want to like step back just for a hot second, because I was interested in like what you said, like how we get scared sometimes. We have fear that enters our minds when we're trying to do something new. And I was trying to think like, why is that? And so I just quickly Googled, because I just have a web page open here. And fear says, as according to Google, an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. Again, not the perfect definition, because it can kind of be different based on the situation, but with the definition. But I think it's kind of interesting to think about it, because it's a new thing. Like your body's natural reaction, like if you think about like primitive feelings, is like, oh, what's that? It's a new fruit. What is that? Or something, you're like, should we eat that? No, I'm scared of something new. Okay. Like, I don't know. Like that's a horrible example, but kind of like a primitive feeling of like, what is this? I don't understand it. So fear is kind of one of those go-to jump to conclusion feelings about something you don't understand, and once you start to learn about something, the fear goes away. Like maybe you're scared of snakes or something, but then you start to learn, oh, actually some snakes are venomous and some snakes aren't. And snakes they act this way because, I don't know, they're cold or something, and they like to curl up. I don't know nothing about snakes, but you know what I mean? Like it's just, once you start to learn those things, fear loses its power. You start to replace it with knowledge, and knowledge replaces fear. And I think that's can stand true for most things, culturally, or even within the art, like we're talking, is just, once you start learning about things, it becomes less scary because you know how it works and you've gained experience to go with that knowledge as well. And so I think, yeah, like definitely learning about your new medium is essential to not be scared of it and let yourself make mistakes. It's just like, why do kindergartners start off doing finger painting and they don't like pick up a paintbrush first? It's like, well, you got to get your fingers in there, and you just got to smear the paint around on the paper, and you kind of get to know the medium in that way. I mean, maybe we don't do that now, like, because we're like, either older or we're adults at this point. We're not gonna like finger paint. Like I guess you could, like, more power to you, but in the same way, like you just got to get your fingers dirty, and you got to like, how does this work? Like, what if I did this? What if I did that? And you can kind of stretch it back and forth to figure out what the limits are of your new medium, and I think that's awesome. But yeah, definitely getting your stuff or your supplies for your new medium, definitely you're not going to see return on that. You will, I mean, if you like it, if you've done some of your research, your preliminary research, like I do, like I knew I would like 3D printing. I just didn't realize how cool it really was in person. But the idea of it I liked. And so if there's something new out there that you like the idea of it, you know, you might be pleasantly surprised and be like even more excited about it once you actually have it in your hands.
Also,
But
if anybody out there listening is on the fence about buying a 3D printer, this is your sign. Buy a 3D printer. The Ender 3 Pro is a really good
if
place
you
to
if you
start.
can afford one, you know.
Nope, buy one right now. They're extremely
geez.
cool. You will enjoy it. They're awesome.
Oh no, my wallet. What?
That's pretty much what happened at work. Zach was like, I want to buy a 3D printer. And then I'm like, you should do it. And he's like, oh, no, I don't need it. And like this. I'm like, Zach.
I was like, I should.
Like, Zach, how long have you wanted a 3D printer? And you're like, for ages. I'm like, just do it. Buy the 3D printer. It's not that
And then I was like
much.
yelling at Lincoln. I was like, "You're making me do this. Look what you made me do." But I was like, "No, just kidding. I wanted an excuse. I wanted a hiatus."
Yeah, joke's on you.
Or
I got a
not
commission
hiatus.
on that.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I wish.
But yeah, like I think you're definitely not going to see any returns on that. Like it's more about like the experience, you know, the problem solving, the phases you go through of learning a new thing and then feeling confident and feeling like you've kind of like conquered it in a way. Like it's a good feeling. You're like, haha, I finally mastered how to do watercolor. Like that's awesome.
I'm never
I
going to
mean,
conquer
no one
Adobe
really
After
has reached that
Effects.
level, but you know what I mean. Like you have your little small wins, and you're like, "That's awesome. I feel good, and I want to keep growing and experimenting with it." But you know, I'm always in the belief that eventually one day it'll pay off because, you know, if you're creative like us, like which most people are, and you start getting into other mediums and other sorts of things, like you're gonna become successful because it's like if you put an amount of hours into it, you're gonna eventually run into something where you're like, oh, that's actually profitable, maybe like you know from an entrepreneurial perspective. I don't know, but it really does kind of sort of pay for itself because it's such a pleasure to do stuff like that. But definitely financially, it's like yeah, you're not gonna see that money again, but it's fun and you know, if for me, it's like the justification of it too is like, oh, cool, I can like print stuff for friends, or if I like want to print something for my family or something, that's awesome. If I want to 3D print my own stuff and try to sell it, then that's cool too. So there's like a lot of reasons for me to own one, but I'm that's just me
And I will forever
and
be
probably
afraid
Lincoln.
of Adobe After Effects, and I will never conquer my fear, and it will always be there to oppose me.
No, you can do it. Yeah, After Effects is scary though. Like I was so scared of it because I was introduced to it by like a guy who did animation. And he was like, "Oh, because he basically introduced me to like the concept of they're called keyframes, but they're just basically like, you know, the frames you tell something to do, hey, from here's a dot and here's another dot. This dot be at this position, at this dot be at another position, and then it does the transition for you. So it just translates
Slowly walks
what
to the
other
place.
object you're trying to do to that position automatically. So you don't have to actually like go frame by frame, but you have these keyframes that you can use. But yeah, he introduced me to that, and I was like, oh, okay, not so scary. I understand that principle now, but there's just so much to do, and it's like super daunting.
It's super great, but for reals though, like as people, especially today, like you can literally learn anything. Like if you have like a art form that you have wanted to learn like forever, like just go
Mm-hmm.
for it. Like there's always a way to overcome whatever limitation, struggle, anything that you have for art, and like you can do this. There's so many amazing resources for education online that are completely free, namely YouTube. There's so many like just online articles, like just learn how to Google questions, like learn how to Google questions with keywords, like any question you have about any aspect of art, like what size should my Photoshop canvas be? Like boom, and then you'll find articles and just it's awesome. And learning is such an amazing thing, and I've learned so much throughout all of content creation and throughout just my art journey, which I feel like I've only really started like halfway through this year.
Oh yeah, same.
But you guys got this. We believe in you.
Yeah.
Me and Zach got you.
Yeah, and just think of all the cool things. Like even if it's the simplest thing, you're like, oh, I want to try doing watercolor or something. I don't know, but it's like, you know, it's such a simple little advancement of just like, oh, there are different types of paints or something. But you know, imagine all the cool things that you learned from that you can I mean, later down the road, I found it multiple times with like any sort of medium and stuff that I'm doing. I learned different techniques or ways to experiment. Like there's a whole class I took where it was like media experimentation, because you need to be exposed to all the different forms of mediums. Like there's like gouache and there's other things, and there's even different processes to make, like, I don't know, it was like this weirdest thing where you would paint a foundation layer, and then you put like packaging tape over top of the canvas, and then you would paint over top of it again, but then you'd scrape some of the paint away to reveal what was underneath it. So like weird stuff like that where it just makes you think different. And they're like watercolor as well, you have to think backwards because you don't really have white paint, so you have to make sure the parts that are lighter or that you want to keep white on the page have to be not painted on, and you have to keep those clean. So that's kind of a different way of thinking. So all these different things that you learn with these different mediums, you can sometimes utilize that kind of problem solving or thinking process in other things. And so I found that a lot too with like making videos too. It's like, oh, I know this one effect. Oh, I could actually apply this to do this or something that I have a cool idea for. I don't know, but it's just so cool that, you know, every little hobby or thing that you pick up and you get to put on your tool belt, and you get to use that anytime to solve other problems. And so it's just like a Swiss Army knife of hobbies and skills, and it's fun. It's what makes you a talented problem-solving artist.
So our challenge to you guys this week is to research that new medium you've always been interested about but have never taken the leap. Look into it, figure out see how cheap it'll be to get into it, figure out a pretty simple way that you can get into it, and if you can, just go for it. Experimentation's key in all this. Just going and trying and doing is one of the best ways to learn mediums. But don't get out of hand, because if you try too many things, it will be very costly. For example, I recently
one at a time is most likely recommended.
Yes, I like am in that box of just trying new hobbies every single month, basically. Like, I swear, every month I have 2 new hobbies.
You may as well just subscribe to like some sort of service that ships a box with a new hobby in it.
Oh, that's actually a good idea. I should start that.
Ooh, write that one down, actually. Yeah. I mean, that's basically like, there's some subscription places that are like that already, like that send you like paint supplies and stuff and art supplies. So they just give you like a random little project with some art supplies. So it can be kind of interesting.
I
think they're called like Art Snacks or something.
My next
sponsor us.
My next escapade or creative adventure is cosplay. I bought like a Link cosplay, and so I'm excited to do that and try and get into cosplay photography. So more on that later.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for listening. We've had an awesome New Year so far. This is the second episode of the year. Yes, second episode of the year.
Yeah,
yes.
Second episode already. That's crazy.
That's incredible. Episode 6. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us till the end here. We really appreciate you guys who watch until the very end and absorb all this amazing knowledge. And we hope you guys, we hope you guys can improve every single day and become better people. So thank you so much. We love you guys. Zach, do you have anything else to say?
Nope. Just we love you guys, and we're grateful that you guys are out there. I mean, this has been one of the most incredible things I've ever been a part of. We're just barely starting, but I can feel it. I can feel the momentum going, and it's so exciting to be able to talk about art every week and get together with all of you guys and hear your thoughts too in the comments and everything. And it's just great. And thank you guys for the support. We really appreciate it. Like, I don't know if you guys understand how much it means to us to feel like there's somebody out there that's like waiting to listen to the podcast or something. It's just, it makes you feel like what you're doing is like worthwhile, and it brings so much more meaning to what you're doing, and we're so grateful for that.
So yeah, hope you guys have a great week. I'm Tux,
and I'm Zach,
and he's Zach, and all our links are going to be in the description. So if you want to check out our stuff, check out there if you already don't know who we are. But thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye. See you guys.